Welcome to Innovate Pasadena Presents. I am Erin Beck, CEO of WANA Family Network and a board member of Innovate Pasadena. I am interviewing today our friend Dan Povenmire.
I say Poven. It's spelled Poven. There's probably people in my family who pronounce it Poven. I don't know.
Dan Povenmire, the co-creator of Disney's Phineas and Ferb, and most recently Milo Murphy's Law. You have also seen his work on The Simpsons, Family Guy, and they were just greenlit by Disney for a second Phineas and Ferb film. So welcome, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Innovate Pasadena is all about innovation, and I know Phineas and Ferb as one of those truly innovation shows.
Yeah, well, it's a celebration of innovation as it is. It's a celebration of the creativity that the young kids have. But just getting it made, we had to sort of break a bunch of molds. We were pitching it around town for 13 years, and we finally got it picked up by Disney, and we had to sort of change a lot of the ways that they did business. We wanted to do the show as what we call an outline-driven show, meaning you put two writer artists in a room, you give them an outline, and they write the dialogue, the gags, the visual gags, the dialogue, everything as they're drawing it. And that was something Disney had never done. They'd always had a script. They approve the script, and then they say, okay, now you can go to storyboards and just stay to this script. But like some of our favorite shows, you know, when we worked on SpongeBob, that's how we did it. Rocko's Modern Life was that way. Ren and Stimpy. You get a lot more visual humor when you do something from an outline, because a lot of the times the gags will just come out of the drawings that you've done. And we wanted to do it that way, and they didn't want to do it that way. We had to get them used to the idea of doing that. We had done the pilot, which they loved, exactly like that, and so they made us do it 2 more times before they felt comfortable that we could do it. They also had these rules at Disney at the time. They said their executive producers did not do voices on the show. And Swampy and I had done voices in the pilot, and I'd done the voice of Doofenshmirtz, and it had tested really well. And I was like, well, why is it that you don't do voices on the show? How is that rule helping you? If Seth MacFarlane came to you and said, I want to do a show on Disney Channel, would you tell him you can't do voices on the, you know? It just seemed like, is this really getting you the best talent? Is this something that's helping your business? And they were like, no, I guess it hasn't helped us at all. So we ended up doing the voices. We wrote the theme song and a couple of songs for the show, and their first thing was, oh no, our EPs do not write the theme songs. And then I was like, well, this theme song tested really well. We wrote it, the kids are already memorizing it and stuff. We had to keep telling them to let us do what it is that we do well. And then we've been nominated for like 5 Emmys for songs. I've been nominated for voice acting on the show. It's all worked out well for them in the course of the show, but it was hard to get them to do things a certain way at a certain point. Was that ever intimidating? You knew that you wanted to do this show more than anything. It was the show you wanted to see. Yeah. Were you willing to compromise on how things would be done? The best piece of advertising, the best piece of advice that I'd ever gotten in the industry. A friend of mine told me, the most amount of power you can retain as a creative person, as somebody who's not actually holding the purse strings, is to be okay to walk away from something and maintain that ability to know where that line in the sand is. And it doesn't mean don't work and play well with others. It's always good to take everybody's advice and notes, and anything that's good, use it. But know where your line in the sand is. And after we'd done the pilot, they sort of left us alone to do the pilot. It had tested really well. The executives all loved it and stuff, but they wanted to change like the look of the characters. They had they hired a bunch of character artists to come in and do their takes of Phineas and Ferb, and I just, after sitting through like 5 of these meetings with these horrible ideas of what they could look like, I said, I just pulled one of the executives aside and I said, you guys can make whatever show you want. because you bought it, it belongs to you. But if you want me to come work on it, it's going to have to be the show I pitched you. Otherwise, I'll just stay at Family Guy this year. That's just fine with me. No hard feelings. And he was like, like, and I got all these emails from people talking me down off this ledge. And like, oh, no, it's just whatever you choose. And I said, well, then I choose not to sit in those meetings anymore. So there was a constant barrage of that I just sort of fought against. By the time we had done Phineas and Ferb, I had enough of a name in the industry that I felt like, I can work wherever I want to work. I just wanted to do the show I wanted to do.
Yeah. So then when you get to Milo Murphy's Law,
yes.
following after Phineas and Ferb, there were changes between...
It was sort of strange because Disney had been wanting to have a big #1 hit animated show. Disney TV Animation had wanted that for years. They'd never had that at all. Phineas and Ferb came and it was #1 all over the world for like 3 years straight, and most of the 7 years it was on. And so they got this huge hit, and one of the first things they did at the end of that was move all of the cartoons off Disney Channel and put them on this other network they had called Disney XD, which still exists. But now it's mostly showing video game stuff, people playing video games like you see on YouTube. And it just never worked. And there's a bunch of reasons why it never worked. Nobody knew it existed. The people who did know existed had a hard time finding it on the channel because, Disney and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network were like on most people's cable station, they were right next to each other. 332, 333, 334. And then Disney XD like 1406. And it's like there was a lot of non-thought going into that, but they were trying to sort of prop up this new thing as the next Cartoon Network or something, and it just never really worked. So Milo never got the eyes on it that Phineas got on. Even though if you're watching TV, watch Milo Murphy's Law. It's a good show. I think it's as good a show as Phineas. It just didn't get the big push.
So there's some elements in Phineas, like the blended family, like the platypus, things that were underutilized in media. Are there other things that you think of now that, like, what is the next underused thing that's just ripe for?
Maybe giraffes. Maybe there's not enough giraffes on TV. Like, the reason we use the platypus is because there'd never been a platypus. There's been dogs and cats done to death. There's a concept that the guys who created Shrek called mental real estate. Before Shrek, everybody knew the word ogre, but they didn't have a specific ogre in mind if you said ogre to them. And they felt like that was mental real estate they could claim if they did a good job with Shrek, and they did. If I say ogre to you now, you have a picture of an ogre.
You do.
And it's Shrek, and he's got those ears. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, maybe we're going to own platypus. And I think we own platypus for this entire generation of kids. When you say platypus to them, they think of Perry with the fedora on. So I think that's and that was my argument for how the characters look. Phineas has a triangle head, which nobody really understood why that is, or they'd never seen that before. And I told them when they said, would you consider making his head look like something else? I said, well, no, because people are going to either fall in love with these characters or they're not, based on what they do and how they act. And if they do fall in love with them, the show will have a much longer life and be a much bigger hit if it doesn't look like anything else on your network. And they were like, oh, okay. And so, so that's what happened.
So Phineas and Ferb come up with all of these inventions that nobody has seen before. Yeah. Since we are Innovate Pasadena, which invention do you think would make the best tech startup company?
Ooh, they made a animal translator that let animals, pets, owners figure out what they were actually saying. And I think that would be I could imagine that app being downloaded a lot. I think everybody would want to know what my cat really thinks of me Although I think they really do know what their cat thinks of them.
Do you have animals in your home? Does your family keep pets?
I do. Just recently, we just got 2 hamsters. I grew up with dogs and cats, and we live in a house now that's not quite conducive for that, just in that there's coyotes outside all the time. So we got my daughter some hamsters this last weekend, and we have 2. One's named Ginger and one's named Snaps.
How old are they now, your kids?
They're 11 and 13.
Are these their
Almost 14.
first pets?
This is their first pets other than fish that they had. I had a cat for 17 years that passed away right before my daughter was born, and I didn't feel like I had to fill that void because I felt like, well, I'm going to have a kid. That's even more responsibility. Let's see how this works out before I add animals onto it. And then we were going to get cats at one point, and then we moved to this place where it was just like animals go missing so fast because of just the coyote and bobcat population in the place where we live. So we're like, I don't want to be serving up dinner.
Gosh, there are so many things that we could ask now, and we are just about to go to break.
Okay.
So let us just do one fun thing before we go.
Okay.
I have brought with us some things that I think could probably lend themselves to a Doofenshmirtz.
To a Doofenshmirtz voice.
Could you delight our audience before we head off for break, and they'll know what they're getting into for the second half?
I'm doing Yoda. Here, this is, always! It's going to sound too much like Yoda, I think. Maybe that's where he comes from, is my Yoda impersonation. Always with what cannot be done. Hear you nothing what I say? You must unlearn what you have learned. Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. Perry the Platypus. He's also, the greatest danger. Oh, this is Captain Kirk. So I'm going to do Doofenshmirtz doing Captain Kirk.
And that's what we will do when we get back from the break. Okay. So we'll see you back in just a minute. Do not miss Doofenshmirtz Kirk.
Innovation is so important for iRobot because it leads us into new markets and new features for our consumers.
Technologies reinvent and changes itself all the time, so we have to keep up. Innovation is not a luxury. I think it's a necessity.
Welcome back to Innovate Pasadena Presents. We are here with our guest Dan Povenmire, co-creator of Phineas and Ferb, and he has something to share with us called...
I'm going to do Doofenshmirtz doing Captain Kirk. I don't know, it's weird to do one voice doing an impression of another, but okay, here we go. The greatest danger facing ourselves and irrational fear of the unknown. There is no such thing as the unknown, only temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood. I'm just trying to put the pauses in.
I have goosebumps.
Excellent. Excellent.
That is outstanding. You are, and we all know this from having followed you.
Yes.
You are a man of many, many talents.
Yes.
You're also a musician.
Yes.
Do you still rock and roll?
I rock and roll occasionally. I don't play in a band anymore. For many years, for like 20 years, I played in a rock band here. But I write songs all the time. I quit this rock band when I sold my own cartoon show, and like 3 years later, I had an album of songs I had written for that cartoon show that actually made it to the Billboard Hot 100. It was between Beyonce and Pink for a week. We made it to like number 59 on the Billboard Hot 100. I was like, if I had known that what it took to get an album on the charts was to quit music entirely and just draw cartoons, I would have done that a long time ago. But so I still get a chance. I still feel like a musician. But I also work with people who are real musicians, who are much better than me. But I feel like I'm a better songwriter than a guitarist anyway.
The love handles.
Yes.
Based off of you?
A little bit. It's based off of me when I had the long hair. Danny, the lead singer of Love Handle, is a caricature of me. Swampy, the drummer, is based off of Swampy. The Bobby Fabulous is based off of one of our writers on the show. So it was these three very unkind caricatures that one of our people did of us became Love Handle.
How often do the people that get written into the show recognize their caricatures?
I think most of the time, actually, people understand. I think when they see a caricature of themselves, there's like, oh my God, is that me? Yeah, I think you get that a lot.
Do you tell them ahead of time?
Sometimes not. We had an episode where Candace gets turned into a fly with Candace's head, and she runs into another fly with a human head, and we made it look like one of our writers, Martin Olson, and then we had him do the voice. But we didn't tell him up front that it was going to look exactly like him and then be his voice. And I think what he says, she says, "Oh wait, did you get hit with a fly ray too?" And he goes, "Oh no, I've always been a fly. I just got hit with a human head ray, so now I got to walk around with this silly thing." so she leaves him alone.
So you can sit down and write a song in an hour.
In about an hour
less.
Usually, yeah.
Where does that skill come from? And do you still, is it a superpower? Does it come into the rest of your daily life?
Might be. I think the thing that I've learned over the years just in entertainment is not to try to second guess yourself too much, that usually your first instinct is right. So, and just by virtue of the schedule we were on, we had to do a show and write a song every week. We'd pick up the guitar, we would come up with a bunch of funny lyrics and a hooky melody, and we would be done with it, and we wouldn't then think about it and say, can we rewrite and can we rewrite? Sometimes I would rewrite or add a verse on the way home. I'd be going, oh no, this would be better if it was that. But we would generally write it and do a quick recording of it, like a demo of it, in about an hour. I think it's just from doing it so often that ends up being the case. Plus, we're not waiting for the muse. We're not waiting for, our angst to come out. We're not trying to do anything deep. We have a song to write. Okay, squirrels. Candace has squirrels in her pants. Squirrels in my pants. Well, let's find every rhyme we can find for pants, and figure out the most ridiculous ways to put them in here. And that, it writes itself when you have a title to go to.
Do you think that technologists and entrepreneurs would benefit from that? Right? Because we are all searching our muse, whether it's that invention that changes humanity or the startup that will follow for the next 10 years while we eat ramen. Do you think that sort of write an idea, throw it in the basket if you have to mentality would be?
I think it's good not to overthink yourself. Just in general, I think that your first impressions are often right, and if you make decisions quickly, then you have time to go back and fix them if they're wrong. That's to me the worst the worst directors or EPs that I've worked for are people who overthink things, and they put off making a decision till here, and then it's like, oh, but it doesn't work because of this and this and this, which you find out during the process. But now we're too far into the schedule to fix it. So I think it's good to just make the decisions as fast, as expeditiously as possible. Did
you ever have a great creative error that you had to heroically correct in that sort of a way?
Oh, many. I don't. I've had people write down when I say that I'm wrong, because when I say, oh no, I was wrong, they're like, ooh, write this down, because most of the time I just always assume I'm right. I have that disease, which is a great disease to have if you're a showrunner, because you make decisions fast. But I never have that worry that I'm going to make the wrong decision. And then when I make a wrong decision, I'm always like, okay, this was wrong. We need to do it this way. But people always like, oh, Dan said he's wrong about something. So because I tend to come off as pretty. Maybe full of myself. Maybe that's the. I like to say confident. Other people might say full of himself. I don't know.
I often say that the line between arrogance and brilliance slides towards brilliance in relation to your ability to pull it off.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, as we are, many of us technologists, a lot of us are space geeks. I understand that you are as well.
Well, I'm a little bit of a space geek. I don't actually want to go to space. I have a friend who wants to go to space. That seems a little scary to me, but I did do the weightless flight, which as soon as that became available, I remember seeing a video of the astronauts training in this big plane that would climb and then dive, and it would just do these parabolas. And in the middle of that parabola, there's like 20 or 30 seconds of pure weightlessness. And I was like, I've got to do that someday. And then it became open for private people to go and pay a ridiculous amount of money for 90 minutes of entertainment. I forget, I think it was like $5,000 for 90 minutes. Yeah. I don't even know what that is a minute, but it was the best thing I ever spent money on. It was everything I wanted out of it. And weightlessness, pure weightlessness, is both sort of surprising and exactly what you would expect, but because you don't know what that's going to feel like, it's really surprising. It's an unbelievable experience.
I felt like coming back down that I could feel the weight of
That's
the
right,
earth.
You've done it too, haven't you?
This is how we met.
Yes.
That's how we met.
Yes.
That feeling the weight of the earth under your feet. Do you have a?
Yeah, it was weird, and the thing to me that was the weirdest is, and everybody on the ship said the same thing, is that the instructors would say when we were coming out of the parabola, they'd say feet down, coming out, meaning orient yourself to the ground because you're about to get gravity back. And we all said the same thing. They would say that, and then you'd go, well, I guess that's down because that's where the mat is. That, like this looks like floor, that must be it.
The enemy's mat is down.
It only took you literally like 15 or 20 seconds to forget which way the earth was from you. And that doesn't even happen underwater, really. You can still feel the earth falling on, pulling on you. It was amazing. It was really amazing. You got to do it for something else, though. Were you doing it for your job or something, right?
I did it out of graduate school. We had a small spacecraft that we were testing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is a different feeling because you're so focused on this project you have that you almost forget what's happening around you.
Yeah, we were just playing. I was like, it was like me and. There was a hotel manager and a race car driver and a volleyball player. And like me and the race car driver were like the big kids. And we're like, okay, this next time I'm going to throw you over this way. And you're like, okay, this time we're going to push off the walls and see how many swimmers turns we can do and pass each other. We were doing just ridiculous stuff, but it was great.
Is that experiencing that, is that one of those things that gives you faith in people and humanity? One of the things you love about?
Yes, it's just the fact that we figured out how to do that. The fact that we figured out how to shoot us to the moon and come back. There's not really a launch pad there. How are we going to be, that's like hitting a BB that's somebody throws with another BB. It's really an impressive feat that we were able to do that.
And you have a thread that's sort of like this that you do, the things that make you love.
I have a thread on Facebook. I try to put one up every day, but it's called Today's Reasons I Love Human Beings. And there was just so much negativity happening on Facebook as of 4 years ago or something that I just started finding things that made me really happy. Soldiers coming home to see their kids, deaf people hearing for the first time, people doing ridiculous things that they had trained their body to do, great gymnastics things, great singing things, stuff like that. Anything that just made me feel warm, I would put it up and just say, today's reason I love human beings. And then people started telling me that's the reason they went to Facebook. The first thing they did is they would check what made me love human beings that day. And then they would go on to all the rest of the stuff.
And that is what you should be heading out to Facebook to check on right now. Go find Dan Povenmire, learn more about the second Phineas and Ferb movie that's coming out. Thank you so much, Dan, for being here. Thank you to Innovate Pasadena Presents for giving us this fantastic afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and remember, stay innovative.